Frankly speaking, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, Honorable Union Finance Minister, who is the first woman finance minister to have presented 5 consecutive budgets and possibly the third finance minister to present 5 consecutive budgets, and the 6th finance minister to do 5 in total. Do you think that's a feather in your cap?
Well, it was an opportunity given, and I'm very grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister and also to my party for having that kind of a faith. And their guidance has really helped me to at least serve the party this much.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, you say guidance. Are there a lot of meetings between you and the finance minister? क्या जब बजट प्रेजेंट होता है तो एक विजन जो दिखानी होती है लोगों को, देश के लोगों को, और एक स्पेशली बिकॉज ये इलेक्शन ईयर का बजट कहा जा रहा था, तो इसमें कितनी इन्वॉल्वमेंट होती है प्रधानमंत्री की और अन्य सीनियर मिनिस्टर्स की?
प्रधानमंत्री जी का हर साल हर बजट के संदर्भ में बहुत इन्वॉल्वमेंट होती है, और फिनांस मिनिस्ट्री के द्वारा जितने भी प्लानिंग होते हैं और एक नक्शा रफ ड्राफ्ट बनाने के बाद पीएम जी के साथ एटलीस्ट 3-4 टाइम्स इंटरेक्शन, इंटेंसिव इंटरेक्शन होता है टू एक्सप्लेन एज टू व्हाट विल बी द इम्पैक्ट, उससे क्या असर पड़ेगा और उसका प्रभाव भारत के इकोनॉमी में क्या होगा, ये सब विषयों के ऊपर विस्तार से चर्चा गोष्ठी होती है।
प्रधानमंत्री से जब आप बातचीत करने गई कि ये इलेक्शन के पहले शायद आखिरी फुल बजट होगा, अगले साल वोट ऑन अकाउंट होगा, तो उन्होंने कुछ ऐसा बताया जो उनके मन में था, जो वो मैसेज देश के लोगों को देना चाहते थे?
No, this was looked at as more budget which is also going to be primarily working to keep the growth momentum alive. क्योंकि when we are coming out of the pandemic and when growth is got to be sustained, and having sustained it in the last 2 years, this is a very delicate moment when if you loosen up and it comes down, it's going to have a big, in a sense, impact. Something which was going up nicely, because we were a bit careless or we were a bit relaxed, starts coming down, then it becomes even more difficult. So in order to sustain the growth momentum, otherwise it is not possible for India, which like many other countries is facing the global challenges, to have reached the fastest growing economy level, that stage, even though the challenges globally are still continuing. Many countries are facing, reeling under it. So for India to have reached that position, it's not for want of right kind of approach. It's not because we gave emphasis in one and not another, but we kept looking at every sectors. So having given that kind of intensive review, care, response, this budget cannot be undermining that growth which we are so carefully building up. So Prime Minister's guidance was sustain the growth momentum. But of course make sure that you are inclusive, making sure you're reaching out to communities which have not been touched and so on.
निर्मला जी, आपने 5 साल बजट प्रेजेंट किया है और हम ये आई थिंक पोस्ट बजट 5वां फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग भी कर रहे हैं, ये भी कंसेक्यूटिव रहा है। मैं पूछना चाहती हूँ, इस बार बजट के बाद शायद बजट पर कम चर्चा हुई है और बाकी जो मार्केट में इस वक्त वॉलेटिलिटी दिख रही है, उतार चढ़ाव जो चल रहे हैं, शायद उसने ओवरशैडो किया है बजट को। जो अडानी स्टॉक्स के साथ हुआ है हिंडनबर्ग रिपोर्ट के बाद, बहुत से लोगों का कहना है कि ये कहीं ना कहीं कोई कॉन्स्पिरेसी है। आप इसे कैसे देखती हैं?
ये पहली बार नहीं है कि बजट के बाद कुछ और कारण की वजह से बजट के विषय चर्चा में इतना प्रमुख लेवल पर नहीं रहता, क्योंकि मुझे बिल्कुल याद है 2020 बजट जो 2020-21 वाला बजट जो 1 फरवरी 2020 को पेश किया, उसके तुरंत बाद तो कोविड आ गए और सभी डिस्कशन, इनफैक्ट हम रश करके पार्लियामेंट में अप्रोप्रिएशन वगैरह क्लियर करके पार्लियामेंट को बंद किया। सो वो पहली बार जब बजट के ऊपर चर्चा भी नहीं हुआ, पार्लियामेंट के अंदर भी बाहर भी। सेकेंड 2021 बजट विच वॉज फॉर 21-22, उस समय भी सेकेंड वेव। सो हम 21 बजट में बहुत सारे ऐसे विषय ले आए, रिफॉर्म भी, रिवाइवल पैकेज का भी वगैरह, आत्मनिर्भर भारत का अनाउंसमेंट हुआ था 4-5, उसके बाद वाला बजट, उसमें भी हमारे लिए it was taken hijacked by the wave, pandemic, second wave which came. So 22-23 वाला बजट ओमिक्रॉन and Russia war had begun. February में war begun हुआ, बजट भी उसी समय का। So ये पहली बार नहीं है कि बजट के बाद कुछ और विषय के कारण बजट के अहमियत के ऊपर चर्चा इतना नहीं हो रहा, मगर अभी शुरुआत भी हो गया है बजट के ऊपर। On aspects of budget discussions have commenced and lots of things are happening. So it's not, unfortunately for me, it's not the first time. Each one of the time there's some more there.
But those were not conspiracies. जो पहले की आप बता रहे हैं, चाहे वो वॉर हो, चाहे वो पैंडेमिक हो, फर्स्ट वेव, सेकेंड वेव, थर्ड वेव, वो कॉन्स्पिरेसीज नहीं थी। ये हिंडनबर्ग की जो रिपोर्ट है, एक सेक्शन मानता है कि ट्रांसपेरेंसी कम है और कांग्रेस पार्टी ने और तमाम ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज ने सवाल उठाए हैं कि अडानीज को स्पेशल डिस्पेंसेशन मिली है, और दूसरी तरफ एक सेक्शन कहता है कि ये कॉन्स्पिरेसी है। आप कॉन्स्पिरेसी समझती हैं या समझती हैं कि ये मार्केट की एक्टिविटी थी और किसी रिपोर्ट की वजह से अगर ये हुआ है तो वो एक स्टॉक पर हुआ है?
I don't want to have any view on it except that the regulators should act in time and act to keep the market stable, act to keep India regulatory functions at its best. So whether it is the Reserve Bank or it's the SEBI sitting in the finance ministry, my view would be that the regulators should be always on their toes, and that is where I would comment about what's got to be done.
पर अगर 6 दिन तक लिटरली कोई इस तरह का ना स्टेटमेंट आया, 12,500 करोड़ सिर्फ अडानी स्टॉक्स के इरोड हो गए, उसमें आम आदमी, आम छोटे इन्वेस्टर्स का पैसा भी है, उस पैसे के ऊपर अभी तक कोई स्टेटमेंट कहीं से आई नहीं है, ना रेगुलेटर से, ना आरबीआई से, ना फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री के फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज जो डिपार्टमेंट है उससे। इसके बीच में आम इन्वेस्टर के मन में कहीं ना कहीं एक डर है, और ऑफ कोर्स ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज ने 2 दिनों पार्लियामेंट को लॉक जैम कर दिया है और उनका डिमांड जेपीसी का है, तो सवाल तो उठेंगे।
सवाल उठेंगे। आई एम नॉट ऑब्जेक्टिंग टू सवाल बीइंग रेस्ड, आई एम रिपीटेडली अंडरलाइनिंग द फैक्ट। आप आम इन्वेस्टर के ध्यान में रखते हुए प्रश्न पूछ रहे हैं। मैं रिपीटेडली इस बात को आई वॉन्ट टू अंडरलाइन that when it comes to Department of Financial Services जो आप रेफर किया है, बैंकों के एक्सपोजर के ऊपर, इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज के एक्सपोजर के ऊपर, they themselves are coming out and speaking, and coming out and speaking fairly covering every aspect of what is worrying the minds of people and about their exposure, and about how even after the valuation continue to fall, where their levels of profit is and so on. and that their exposure is this much. They are not overexposed to any one company. These are from the horse's mouth you're hearing it, from the bank, from the insurance sector. RBI, as the regulator, has come up with a very clear statement yesterday. And as it is, let me explain what the RBI has also said for a minute. RBI didn't go into this detail, but I'm just making sure that this is a message which senior journalists, a very important television channel, through your medium, I want to explain this, that on banks' exposure, then on bank dealing with clients almost on a everyday basis, in fact, hourly basis, through the CRILIC data, which the RBI is accessing. They know what is happening, and they keep an eye on it on an almost daily basis. So RBI has given a statement as well about the bank's health. As ministry, I will definitely draw your attention, Navika, to the health of India's banks now. Only yesterday, probably, State Bank of India came up with its quarterly report. Their health, their profit levels, the asset quality that they have are all explained by them. So that is about RBI, the banks, the insurance companies, where ministry is looking at both the RBI and the banks themselves and the insurance themselves to see how their levels of exposure is and what levels of profitability are they in. So that is all very well explained by themselves. Now SEBI too looks at these things almost regularly. So I think I am looking at the regulators who, as I said, India and its markets are very well managed by our regulators. Yes, there have been occasional, I don't know, for want of a better word, I'll use occasional blips in the market which may be small or big, but they do address issues like that. And I strongly believe that our regulators are definitely seized of this matter.
But do you think when it comes to investors with such huge volatility, there hasn't been a statement from SEBI? Now, are you saying there's nothing to worry and
No,
therefore there is no statement?
I'm saying that one of the regulators given a statement. I'm saying that regulators in India are well seized of such things almost on a daily basis. So it is very clear that they are watching or even commenting, like the way RBI did yesterday, on the developments in the market, and they will definitely explain things out, whichever way it is. I am not commenting on the merit of any issue here. Whichever way it is, they would definitely speak about it, and RBI has spoken about it.
लेकिन ऑपोजिशन का कहना है कि सरकार भाग रही है इस पूरे इशू से। ऑपोजिशन के कई सवाल हैं, पार्लियामेंट सेशन में है और पार्लियामेंट में कहीं ना कहीं कोई डिस्कशन और सरकार की तरफ से कोई स्टेटमेंट होना चाहिए। ये
I don't want to undermine an opposition's role, and I'm not also dismissing what they say, but I want you to please hear me on this. सरकार भाग रही है. Every parliament session, who is the one who's stopping discussions from happening? And when discussions happen, I'm sorry to recall one of those real very hurtful moments on parliamentary history. People stood on the benches where the Secretary General sits and threw the rules book on the chair. All this happened by whom? Discussion you want, you have discussion. You can't disrupt and completely bring the House to a standstill, but also go out and say, government doesn't want to discuss. So I want it to be a lot more credible explanation to say the government is भाग रहे हैं. कहाँ? सेशन तो चल रही है, सेशन चालू है. सेशन के टाइम हाउस में ना रहते हुए गांधी स्टैचू में चिल्लाने वाले, प्लकार्ड रखने वाले और बाहर जाकर के बोलने वाले और ऐसे गलत बयान भी देने वाले कौन है भैया? आओ चर्चा करो अंदर. ये इस बात के विषय में, इस विषय के संदर्भ में सिर्फ ना कह रही हूं, इससे पहले प्लीज निकालो रिकॉर्ड. हर विषय जो वेरी सीरियस विषय है उसके ऊपर चर्चा करने के आतंक पैदा करने वाले कौन है? ऑपोजिशन. सो चर्चा से भाग रहे हैं, ये स्टॉक लाइन देने में फायदा नहीं है.
तो आप तैयार हैं?
मैं इससे पहले वाले सत्र का उदाहरण ले रही हूं. चाइना के ऊपर, बॉर्डर के ऊपर, लद्दाख के ऊपर चर्चा करो. भैया इसके ऊपर कितनी बयान हमने दिया कि रक्षा मंत्री जी आएंगे, जवाब देंगे, स्टेटमेंट देंगे, जयशंकर जी स्टेटमेंट देंगे ना. And I, for once, I normally don't get up on other subjects and speak because every minister fully can address it. But that day, I had to get up to say, I remember Shri Kiran Rijiju, who's now the law minister, telling me that Pranab Mukherjee ji, I know he's not alive, but still I'm referring to him with due respects, had told him not to raise during UPA time the issue of China in the Arunachal border. Called him to his room and said, please don't raise it. He abided by it. The next time, a different instance, when he started raising again he had called him and said, please don't raise it, we'll address it, we'll tell you all the things about it, saying it's sensitive. But when our government says, don't discuss Ladakh, don't discuss that, we will inform you. They say, oh, no, the government is not allowing an important matter, discussion, and go out and give such fundamentally wrong data. Itne kilometers, square kilometers been occupied by. Where does he get all this information from? But he wouldn't speak in the parliament. He wouldn't allow the discussion on in the house on other things. But on this, they'll go on saying, government didn't have a charcha. Raksha Mantri speaks. So, completely one thing inside and one thing outside.
मुद्दा यह है कि इस इशू पर जब सोमवार को फिर से बैठेगी पार्लियामेंट, क्या सरकार इस मुद्दे पर डिस्कशन के लिए तैयार है या किसी स्टेटमेंट के लिए तैयार है? क्योंकि इसमें ऑपोजिशन का डिमांड और पॉलिटिक्स एक तरफ, इसमें आम आदमी का भी कंसर्न.
हर विषय में आम आदमी कंसर्न है एंड हर विषय में सरकार पूरे रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के साथ हर पार्लियामेंट्री इशू को हैंडल करती है. ये नहीं है कि इसमें जनता, आम आदमी इन्वॉल्व है मगर नेशनल सिक्योरिटी में आम आदमी इन्वॉल्व नहीं है, इन्फ्लेशन में आम आदमी इन्वॉल्व नहीं है. क्यों? आम आदमी के इन्फ्लेशन अटैक नहीं करता और उसके ऊपर जब हम जवाब दे रहे हैं कोई बैठता नहीं है, वॉकआउट करते हैं. I was ready to answer. I was standing and answering. There was nothing, nobody from the Congress, and all of them walked out. इन्फ्लेशन आम आदमी के लिए नहीं है, मगर जब बाहर बात कर रही हो महंगाई महंगाई, total hypocrisy. Navika, I'm very, I feel very let down. India needs a good, responsible opposition. Not sorry to say, my Hindi is weak, but I'll still say something. Drama bus. Not those who are, going about, I'm प्यार के दुकान.
प्यार की दुकान.
हाँ. I'm establishing प्यार के दुकान, but you go on speaking in such khadwa shabd, you abuse the Prime Minister, you abuse everybody, and you go on keeping the company of the people who speak such language, and then say, मैं प्यार का दुकान. Come on, I want a serious opposition. who stands
You think
up
Rahul
in
Gandhi is not serious at all
Congress
about
party is. I don't want to take individual names. Congress party probably believes that they can do everything outside, but when it comes inside the parliament, they will not be there to hear the answers because they know they will be convinced by the answers we give. They don't want to be convinced. I take the example of inflation, where I stood. I take the example of the economy में क्या हो रही है economy. कोविड के समय से इकोनॉमी के ऊपर न्याय, I mean, fair, you have to hold it, talk about it. जब हम खड़े होते हैं, प्रधानमंत्री जी खड़े होते हैं जवाब देने के लिए, कांग्रेस चल जाता है. उसका मतलब क्या है? प्रश्न तो आपने उठाया, जवाब दे रहे हैं जी. Then how are you going out? So what is the impression you're giving the people of India? Aam Janta. You're raising their concerns, is what you're telling me. And there is answer coming from the Prime Minister, coming from the concerned ministers. Raksha Mantri, Home Mantri, Videsh Mantri, मैं सब. बट जवाब देने के समय नहीं, इधर नहीं बैठेंगे, मगर कमरे में बैठ करके टीवी में देख करके बाहर जाकर टिप्पणी, वो भी कठोर शब्द में तीखा टिप्पणी. सो व्हाट इज इट? नफरत फैलाने वाले कौन है? भाषा के द्वारा आप नफरत फैला रहे हो, फिर आप ही प्यार की दुकान. लुक एट द लैंग्वेज दे हैव यूज्ड ऑन द पीएम. पिछली बार भी 2014 to 19 में भी क्या क्या शब्द उपयोग किए? चोर है, झूठे है, बोला नहीं है. और जब चोर नहीं है, मैं सच्चाई बोल रही हूं, सुनो, करने के समय आप तो नहीं रहते सुनने के लिए. आपकी स्ट्रैटेजी ऐसा ऑपोजिशन पार्टी ही गलत.
पर बीजेपी जब ऑपोजिशन में थी तब भी तो वॉकआउट करती थी, और तब
जवाब सुनने के बाद से वी आर नॉट सेटिस्फाइड विद द रिप्लाई एंड वी वॉक आउट इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग देन टू से आई विल थ्रो all allegations at you, ask all the questions, which is right, do, please do, but you should also be there to hear the reply. No, you want to go away after that. What is that responsibility? How would you read that?
मैं वापस इस मुद्दे पर आती हूं जो मार्केट्स में वॉलेटिलिटी है. इस पर बहुत से लोगों का ये कहना है, और उस कंपनी का स्टेटमेंट भी आया है कि दिस इज एन अटैक ऑन इंडिया. आप मानती हैं कि दिस इज एन अटैक ऑन इंडिया? कोई ऐसी ताकतें हैं जो इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को इस तरह से कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना चाहती हैं, हिलाना चाहती हैं, उसमें इस तरह का कंफ्यूजन लाना चाहती हैं? क्योंकि 7-8 दिन हो गए हैं जब से ये चल रहा है, सरकार ने कोई तो व्यू लिया होगा इस पर. Maybe it's an issue of further investigation, but is there a prima facie feeling that there could be some forces that are anti-India?
I want to just convey that as regards investments, as regards fund flow into India, as regards trust in our banking system, as regards joint ventures and the PLI and also China +1 related policies that we have, I don't see any impact because of this incident. Example, the last few days, India has received more than, few days, not months, few days, India has received more than 8 billion. Our forex has gone up to that level. Forex reserves have gone up by 8 billion in the last few days. I'm not saying in months we get only 8 billion. Few days we've got 8 billion, and that too in the last few days. The period that
after 24th of January,
when the period that you're referring to, right? So what explains that? Because people do believe in India. People do believe the strength, fundamental strengths of India, that monies are coming in. And therefore, I want to answer your question that trust in India, India's markets, India's economy, India's leadership and India's vision for a future and India's role in the global economic revival, there's, if anything, good confidence. And that is why I think people are coming even now talking about their businesses.
So it's not an attack on India. This particular occurrence is not an attack on India.
Otherwise, why would people come investing? So I think the trust in India, trust in India's leadership, trust in India's role for having kept an economy carefully nurtured during the COVID period, and as a result of which we have reached the stage of being the fastest growing economy, are all intact.
So it's just a company problem?
I would think so.
And what about the charges against the government that this is, in inverted commas, a favored company by the government?
The moment they utter that, yesterday talking somewhere else, I did say this. You point a finger at me, which is a wrong allegation with a finger that is pointing wrongly at me. Don't forget you have 3 fingers pointing at you. Which are the governments which have called this party and given land, given ports? Not BJP governments. How come you suddenly forget that? Would they then please now give back and say, no, no, we made a wrong decision? We have not given anything. Let me be absolutely clear. Any project under Prime Minister Modi goes through the open tender process, global tendering. It's all put on digital platforms. Every day, how many people have applied, what has been the process, how is it being processed, and when is the final bid being opened? All that is there for everybody to see. We don't indulge in favoritism of any kind. And therefore, for those very people, rigorous media like you should ask them this question. But aren't there instances, specific instances? I'm not talking Hawabaji. Every state which has given land, every state which has given ports on invitation, in this case cannot afford to throw an allegation at us, which is anyway baseless. Kiss, I mean again Hindi man, किस मुंह से? Audacious.
केरला में है, छत्तीसगढ़ में है, राजस्थान में है, बंगाल में है, झारखंड में है.
And people shaking hands and all that. Recent pictures. So, how hypocritical can you be in saying, nay, nay, it's all this government? Hurray! Can you sleep in the nights? I wish the Indian public called this fraud out.
Nirmala ji, do you feel that in our country, making wealth, encouraging entrepreneurship, creating wealth has now become a bad word because politics requires vote banks and rich, wealth are not words in that dictionary?
In fact, I don't think it is now. And the struggle nowadays by many people who see India has been left by the wayside because of the first 50, 60 years of treating wealth creators as though they are plunderers, as though they are sucking other people out. If people are doing legitimate business and earning their money and also giving jobs and creating wealth for themselves and for the country, in the first 50, 60 years, you only heard them being mocked in every avenues, like the way you've said. It is only after, let us say, to be fair, only after 1991 that entrepreneurs have had opportunities coming by the way. And then the systems got also removed of those hurdles. And then now, 2014 onwards, PM Modi openly said, no, wealth creation is not wrong. Making profit is not wrong, as long as you abide by the country's rules and regulations. And this country has been known for entrepreneurship. That is why you have 1 million MSMEs who are all working to take care of themselves, their family, and also creating jobs and wealth. They are exporting some of the fantastic things in this country. So this is again coming back through the back door to accuse wealth creators. That was then. 1991 onwards, it started easing out. 2014 onwards, we've openly said we want entrepreneurs to come into this country. No red tape, all red carpet. That is coming back now with a false narrative, saying these are the people who are doing this and that, but you are shaking hands with them, you are sitting and having dinners with them, you're giving prime properties to them. So that hypocrisy which governed this country in the first 50 years in the name of socialism is coming back. And that is not good for this country. And it shall not succeed. I'm sure the people of India have now come far away from it. But this attempt is a very foolhardy attempt.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, coming back to the budget, I want to ask you, the reactions almost something that we could have said even before the budget, because they follow a certain pattern. But Mr. Rahul Gandhi says, Mitra Kal ka budget hai, no vision to create jobs, no plan to tackle mehngai, no intent to stem inequality, 1% richest own 40% of the wealth, 50% poorest pay 64% of GST, 42% youth are unemployed. Mr. Chidambaram, a former finance minister, also says the word inflation and unemployment were not even mentioned in the budget. How would you respond to their criticism?
No, that's exactly what I want to come back on. These figures, they churn out and also keep mapping the words in the budget. Nowadays it's using AI easy, you can always list out the speech and say how many times this word occurred, this word occurred. If, after all, only those word counts mattered in the budget, I can understand why Garibi, till as long as Congress was there, was never mitaud. They said 50 times, 100 times in a budget about Garibi mitaenge. But till 13-14, what was the halat? Why was India fragile? Why did India's per capita income not go up? Why did you have to come up earlier under Mrs. Indira Gandhi, 20-point program for poverty alleviation? If only your word counts in the budget speech mattered, by now India should be a very prosperous country. Congress went on saying all this in every one of their speeches. So word counts alone don't lead to any kind of poverty alleviation. If that is the job which anybody is doing there in the Congress, I'm sorry, you're wasting your time. Just go to the number of village and do a word count there of the number of people who have received homes, toilets, water, gas, Pakka roads reaching their villages, wellness center, Ayushman Bharat card. Count them and tell me. On the one hand, they will accuse you. This government doesn't have any data. No data government. Don't they say that? Where did these data come from then? Do they run an agency collecting data other than running the party? It's just a lot of lazy opposition job, which I'm very sad for. They have eminent people who have been ministers earlier. If only that party can sit and strategize on how effective opposition can function, it'll be a lot good for them.
I also want to ask you, on the one hand, the opposition says it's an opportunistic budget, which means you've given a lot of things because it is election year. On the other, they say you have not done anything for the common man. I want to ask you, relaxing the income tax for the bottom level, was that left for the end of your tenure of your government because it was election year? And then even in that, they say that reducing the tax at the highest level from 42.7% to 39% is also a reward that you're giving the rich in this country. So I want to ask you, populism, well, many people say there isn't any. The income tax relaxations not going to amount to much, as Mr. Chidambaram says, because you've made the new tax regime as the default regime. So what is the opportunity? What is the opportunistic charge that is being made at you?
I don't see any basis for it. They've just thrown that allegation at us. but without looking into the details. And even if they find the details, they will never speak about it because they are building a narrative which has no basis. For instance, election year budget, and therefore I've done it now. Haven't people been asking the entire middle class? I keep answering them. Sorry, wait, haven't I given you affordable houses? Haven't I given LRS for your student, for your children to go? Haven't the government provided you with subsidy when you're taking loans for certain purposes? And so on. I keep telling, are these not for middle class? I've said that several times in the last several years. But haven't the middle class, and I would say middle class is a very, very, what can I say, a term which is relating to a spectrum of people. It can be this, and therefore there's a huge belt between the two. So if we can understand the term middle class for whatever it means, haven't the middle class kept saying, look, in fact, one of the arguments which I gave them was, have I ever raised the tax against you? In any of your slabs, have I increased it? No, I haven't. During the COVID, there was this whole speculation in the media that I might tax to get money for servicing the COVID period. COVID tax. No, we didn't do any of that. PM was very clear. No, we shall not raise tax now. We've never done that. Since 2014, I don't think this government has ever increased a tax which hurt the middle class. But even then, after COVID, after the inflation, after the disruptions in supply chains, and after their businesses were all suffering, they kept saying, no, please do understand, we need some concessions, we need something left in our hand. Therefore, we've come with this. If I hadn't come with this, a huge section which has been quietly bearing with a lot of difficulty, for whom none of these schemes benefit, would have been left unattended. Is it wrong to attend to them? And to say that this has been done during election, just before an election, was it done in 18, before 19 election? No. So do your damned, don't your damned. And when you do it, because it is the need of the hour, the opposition, instead of saying, good that you did it, because at least this section had been attended to, no, it's done because of election. Cynicism to the very last word, that letter that can be spelled for cynicism.
So are we in an era where, there is absolutely no meeting ground? Prior to 2014, opposition and the treasury benches used to meet together. There were all-party meetings. These days it looks like it's a very bitter relationship between the two sides. Even some things that are good for the country don't seem to find a common response from the treasury and the opposition. Do you think those days of cooperation and working together are absolutely over?
I hope not. Yes, business advisory councils meet even now. All party meetings happen even now. And senior leaders like Rajnath Singh engage with opposition as well. Home Minister engages with the opposition as well. Prahlad Joshi, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, also engages with the opposition parties. They do attend the meetings, but out they go and say different things. These are realities we are living with.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, many people have also pointed at your budget as a heartless budget because subsidies have come down. Fertilizer subsidy, food subsidy. More than that, the fact is that the allocations for Manrega have come down. The question they ask is poverty behind us? Is everybody employed, that Manrega allocations have been slashed the way they have been? How do you respond to that criticism?
What were the three heads you spoke about? Food, fertilizer, and Manrega. Food. Even under the National Food Security Act, now food is being given for free. The 3 rupee or 1 rupee which per kilo the beneficiary was paying, they no longer need to pay. the transport and logistical expenses which states used to put up for lifting the grains, even the states don't need to pay. 2 lakh crores for this year has been announced for the free food distribution, which has been announced for this whole year. So that's on food. Fertilizer. Imported fertilizer was probably 10 times more than what actually was being paid by the farmer per unit, which is a worry. Did Prime Minister shift the burden to the farmer? Import cost has gone up 10 times more, so to make the farmer pay 10 times more? No. The entire burden, and I'm saying the word burden because that much money goes, but the entire expense on that ground of fertilizer, the central government took. Just as for the 80 crore people when free food grains were distributed, for 28 months, that entire cost was on the government. So is this one-year extension under the National Food Security Act. Entire cost, states don't have to pay logistics, nor the beneficiary have to pay 3 rupees or 1 rupee per kilo. That entire cost, the government has taken it upon itself. And come to Manrega. It's a demand-driven program. At the budget time, I give you a certain amount, and as the demand goes up, we increase it. This time, also similar programs like PM Awas Yojana, Jal Jeevan Mission, have all received higher allocations, 60%, 66% higher for PM Awas Yojana. Who are going to build the houses? The very same workers who are otherwise going for Manrega. So are these not to be counted? If I spend, I need to spend only through PM Manrega. I'm doing this. 2 other programs simultaneously have received. And if the demand increases on Manrega through the year, we'll still come through the supplementary demand for grants. You think they don't know any of this? They've been in government. They've had finance ministers. They know what is budgeting. You start with one thing in B, budget time, and you do it differently per demand during the supplementary demand. They all know it. And our last 2 years' performance on this score is there for you to see. This is what we've done. So lazy allegation. I'm sorry, lazy allegation.
On the issue of debt as well, the Aam Aadmi Party has claimed, and they've said that this government has increased the debt burden of the country. The debt burden of the central government was 53 lakh crore in 2014. It's grown 3 times to 150 lakh crore in this budget. Do you think India is leveraged more as far as its debt exposure is concerned?
No, I first of all want to say, please talk about the context in which the increase in debt has happened. COVID years, and immediately after that, wasn't a priority somehow to pull the economy out and make revival a possibility, growth back to what it was before a possibility? Were these normal years? And when states also suffering, didn't we have to give them money to keep their nose above water? Where will these monies come when the economy went down 23 points? 23% drop in our growth. Where will money come? Were these normal years? And when states required to be given money, didn't Aam Aadmi Party's Delhi government also get money at that time? Or concerned about growing debt, did he say, no, 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 please, you're giving me borrowed money. No, I don't want to increase Government of India's debt. I don't want to increase debt at all. Don't give me money. He could have said that if he's really genuinely concerned about borrowed money coming into it. No, he also did take the money. So borrowed money giving at a time of such exigency will jack up your borrowing to GDP ratio. And of course, we will definitely make sure that is why fiscal consolidation has also happened, because we are careful about how we are taking the economy forward. And do you think Honorable Chief Minister, Delhi doesn't know this? He didn't deny saying, I don't want this money because you're giving borrowed money, Baba, please, I don't want to add to India's debt. No, he couldn't have said it, and I understand that. Because he needed, as much as other states, they all needed.
But states say you don't give them even the allocations. The money is not released.
Again,
that's what they say.
The number of times with data in my hand, data distributed to the parliamentarians, I've stood up to say, tell me where I've not given you. I'll tell you with date by date devolution which has happened. Even on the cesses on which they are obsessed, you collecting more cess and that cess money is only with you, you don't give it to us. Much more than what is collected I've given. I'm not saying in a patronizing kind of way, but don't put false allegation. Everything that I collect goes via devolution as per collected taxes, and cesses and surcharge go for those aimed at projects, whether it is agricultural infrastructure, whether it's road, whether it's education, whether it's health. The counts on heads of counts on which I collect cesses. So please come. I'll give you all the data. I've done this in the parliament, but no, I'll keep on putting this allegation. It's your business.
It's politics?
Like in Hindi you say, no, raita phailana. My job is only to jadu pocha that. But he will go on raita phailaying.
Is that also a gender bias?
I think it's an opposition bias. Opposition bias to throw it at the government, and the government after all has its limitation. It can't indulge in that kind of a rigorous, talk shop business. It has its limitation. Being in government, you're expected to talk in certain language, and therefore
do you sometimes feel like crossing
that line? I was happy as an
Rekha?
Opposition spokesperson, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I was
you
happy.
have to control yourself.
There's a lot of,
kabhi.
हाँ बिल्कुल आता है when hypocrisy hits you and you know you have a limitation, you can't say beyond a limit. And even when you get up because you're so put off by the hypocrisy, they say, hey, minister होते हुए आप क्या बार-बार खड़े हो रही हो? ठीक है भाई. So that's where you feel really sad. You know you can give the correct and data-driven answer, but no, there are limitations being in government.
I also want to ask you, inflation continues to be an issue, unemployment continue to be an issue. I want to ask you, unemployment is at the highest level in recent times that we see.
Coming down, as much as inflation, it's also coming down. But the point remains, unlike the Western economies, in India, because of the nature of employment also, what you get as data is that small number which is in the formal sector. There are no credible data collection on the informal. And there should be, and I would be on the side of getting proper, timely data.
But we were supposed to do that. It was a statement of intent made by this government.
That's right.
It hasn't begun.
It will happen. It will happen. But in the meanwhile, when private agencies collect data, and it's their business, they can collect, I'm not objecting, collect data basing on government data also and release data, that versus the government's data becomes a discussion point. So there should be a lot more robust data available to talk about labor. We are now in a slightly better situation because the periodic labor force data which the Labour Ministry brings out, it comes with a bit of a delay, but it does come regularly and it does give you a picture.
But we are the IT enablers of the world. What is taking us so long in getting a database set up, something that we export to the world? What's the problem? Why is the government not being able to set up an apparatus to at least have that kind of data and put an end to the quibble over numbers?
That's right. The PFF, periodic labor force data, is a step in that direction, and I'm sure they're working.
How many more years will it take?
I hope not years. It should happen sooner.
And as far as inflation is concerned, do you expect
it's already come down. When people were thinking it'll come down by 1 or 2 BPS, like basis points only, it came down to 5.8. And that itself coming down below 6 surprised many. But the consistent work of RBI and the government in making sure the supply side and also the money side of issues are sorted out, it's rewarding. Now we are getting the results for it.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, after having presented this budget, maybe the spotlight shifted from it. What is the message that you actually want to give the people of India through this budget?
That the emphasis on growth is kept up, which means India will invest a lot more money to improve the infrastructure for the whole country.
The 33% hike in
That's
capital
right,
X.
reaching 10 lakhs, of which 1.30 lakh will go to the states as 50-year loan, and therefore pending projects or the last mile in many of the projects can all be completed. So what does that mean to an ordinary citizen? It means that his environment will improve, he'll be better to take his businesses or children to school or whatever, and he'll be able to move from one place to another without much of time spent on traveling, and also facilities at home like water reaching your house, water tanks being built next to you, schools, better schools being built, and so on. So that emphasis continues. Other than that, skilling, because Indian industry is going through a major transition. Not only they are trying to invest new and start new capacities, but they also are looking at how to use technology, artificial intelligence, IoT, Web3 related. And for that, when you sit with industries, you hear them say, look, we're doing this, but we also we are ready to pay for people who have appropriate skills for this. So we are spending very much in detail a lot of time to skill and upskill people. Skill, particularly if you read this budget, skilling particularly for Industry 4.0 is a main target. And therefore,
with the international centers that will come.
The international centers is one adjunct to it, but main program being that we skill people for Industry 4.0. We also upskill people. Those who have got some skill, which is, let's say, 10 years ago, will need to update it. So we're going to do that as well. So they will be market ready, industry ready, job ready.
And growth numbers, do you think India will achieve the prediction that has been?
Yes, I've been very realistic. In all my budget, one thing I've been personally committed is to keep numbers realistic, keep numbers transparent. There's no putting somewhere under the carpet business in the budgets that I've presented, and also making sure that we are realistic in our estimates.
And your message to the opposition?
They should spend some time to understand what we are speaking about, read all the papers that we are issuing, and after that also make sure that you come to the parliament and question us, seek answers and get the answers, hear the answers out. I want the opposition to be robust, constructive opposition.
On that note, thank you very much, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman.
Thank you.
Many thanks to you for once again breaking down the budget for us and speaking to me absolutely frankly.
Thank you very much, Navika, for giving me this opportunity.